What's up guys, this is Chris with Half Chrome. Feels like it's been a while for me, but it's good to be back, and I'm here to talk about the Ruko, not to be confused with Roku, the streaming device company. That name was taken, so they switched the letters around. We got the Ruko F11 Gim. Now you can get this guy on Amazon for under $400. Right now there's a $60 coupon. You can get it for around 340 bucks. It appears to be 100% identical and nothing but a rebrand of the SJRC F11 Pro that's been around since last fall. Now we never got around to reviewing that drone, so this is going to be a review of both of those really. It is the same drone, a little bit different color, different markings, and has this 2-axis gimbal, which is pretty exciting. This thing has a total of 4 flight modes that are really basic, have been around a long time, but I don't have on my DJI Mini or Mini 2, which are really in competitive price zone with this drone. So what are those flight modes? One, I have follow me. I can follow the remote just using GPS. They've stripped that out of most of their drones at this point. 2 is active track style object tracking. They have this on here. I can't do that. They do have object tracking modes, but it doesn't really follow a moving object in the same way. At least that's not how it's shown, so we'll see how it works on this drone. Number 3 is a GPS-based orbit. The DJI Mini series have a circle mode, but they're based on that object tracking, and that object almost always gets lost. This has GPS. It's a hidden feature to have that orbit mode, and I'll show you how to find it. The 4th and final mode this has that the DJI Mavic series none of them have is an ADI mode. So I can turn off GPS here, which is a great feature. Is it useful? Does it help me get steadier footage? Well, that remains to be seen. Now I've told you why I'm excited about this drone and some of the features on the drone and the remote. When I come back, I'm going to tell you about what was limiting on the original version of this drone, and that'll set up the discussion about are those problems now fixed. I'll be right back. Real quick, if you do pick one of these up, there's going to be a couple of accessories you're going to want. First and most important is a memory card. I've got my favorite in the links below and links to the drone from multiple websites in the description below as well. And you're definitely going to want to pay attention to where you get this guy. There's a huge discrepancy in price. Another accessory you're going to want is a couple more micro USB cables. You probably have them already, but you're going to want at least 3. One for the remote and one for each battery if you get the package with 2 batteries. These batteries take over 4 hours to charge, and so you're not going to want to wait and do them sequentially. Finally, I recommend the biggest landing pad you can find. Landing this guy is not a trivial thing. It doesn't have those sensors and the stability isn't really there. So if you're landing on some wet grass or snow in my case, you're going to want a nice big target to land on. So 2 years ago on December 29th, 2018, Jack released a video on this drone. And he had a lot to say about this thing in terms of its limitations. You can click on that video and watch it up there if you're interested, but I'll run you through real quick some of the limitations of this guy. So let's start with the camera. It had a really distorted field of view, so a ton of distortion in the camera. It was a pretty wide field of view, but kind of poorly made optics with the horizon was always really curvy. Number 2, it doesn't have any isolation on this camera at all. It has a servo motor, but no suspension, and so you tend to get jello, a lot of shake in the video, also not great. The remote on this thing made a horrible, loud, consistent beeping sound when he was ever recording video, and he found that quite annoying. Let's hope they got rid of that. The video quality wasn't great at all. It was very compressed looking, 1080 footage. We'll see if it got any better this time around. He found it difficult to fly. The GPS, even if the drone was just being asked to stay there, had this toilet bowl effect, and generally it was difficult to fly. Any drone that is kind of that finicky that's going to start to go around in circles on its own, it's going to be difficult to maneuver. Finally, Jack noted that the range wasn't so great. Hopefully that got better. So that sets up how the original F11 did. Let's see how the new one does. So before I get into all the details, I want to tell you about why I was just kind of excited to get this thing. First off, it comes with a case now. This case is maybe one of my favorite cases I've gotten for a drone. It's really nice. It's got extra room. I'm not Mr. like I need that extra 20% out of it. I want something that's small but also really convenient and protects the drone, and this does all that. So I can fit the drone in there. I've got a gimbal guard, which is easy to get on and off, unlike many drones. Has a nice place for the remote control. Talk more about this guy in a second. And a spot for an extra battery, as well as the zipper area up here for all your extra bits. Comes with a single USB cable and some extra props. I was also kind of excited to see the instructions are pretty good now. I was able to follow everything in here and understand exactly how to use this drone, because not everything is super 100% intuitive in the app. There are some hidden features that I'll talk about. Let me start off with some of my favorite features of this drone. First of all, there is a definite improvement both in the camera and the stability of the footage. Obviously, without a gimbal and no electronic stabilization on the older versions of this drone, this one is kicking butt. We've seen 2-axis gimbals on some other inexpensive drones where the footage has been super shaky, and here it isn't. I would say it is definitely not perfect, however. There is a little bit of shake here, and with the electronic image stabilization, you will also notice that any artifacts, any stray light, lens flares that you get are going to be shaking in the footage, and that's just a feature of any electronic stabilization. One of my favorite features I found on this drone was actually waypoints, which I should have mentioned is a fifth thing you can't get on the mini series of drones. And it's actually one of the easiest waypoint app modes I've ever used, and that's including drones from DJI, Autel, and Parrot. Parrot was probably the other one that was maybe about this easy, but this is super trivial. Works well, works as advertised, super intuitive. So it's got waypoints, not bad. The orbit feature does in fact work. It is very slow, so I'm not sure I'm that excited about it, but it does work, and it is a feature you're not going to get on some of the lower cost DJI drones. Overall, I found the app to be simple to use. There aren't that many options, and I think it's going to be intuitive for any pilot to get through it. Finally, the video quality at 4K is definitely an improvement. The bitrate is now up at 40 megabits per second, around there, and that's high enough to get decent video quality. But let's now use that as a segue to talk about the things I don't like so much about this drone. So first up, let's stick with video quality. As you can see here, while it is 4K, it does come across as the right number of pixels, but it's really not taking advantage of that. Really, I would call this video quality a little bit below 720 in terms of how it looks, but better than 480, so that's something. Still a major step up, but definitely just kind of throwing away pixels in my opinion. I think with the electronic image stabilization and the compression, you're just not seeing that 4K quality or anything really even near a nice crisp 1080. What's interesting is that on the front of the camera it actually says full HD, so I'm actually wondering if the 1080 is just up converted, because this camera I think was originally actually just a 1080 camera, so they're probably just up converting it, and that's just another indication it's not really real 4K. Another thing I notice is that when I yaw quickly, I get these props in the field of view, so that electronic image stabilization is definitely at work. It's using different parts of the sensor to pick up as you yaw quickly, but you can get those in there and that's gonna ruin your shot for sure if you're yawing quickly. I also would see sometimes the shadows of the props creating these jello-y type artifacts in the video as well, and so that's not so hot either. The colors are pretty good. The dynamic range is okay. Certainly it's not top notch. I found that the yellows and oranges were definitely shifted a little bit towards red, but that's kind of subtle commentary compared to the other limitations of this camera. One thing that really puzzled me about this drone and bothered me was despite having this camera on a nice smooth gimbal, when I use this control on the remote to steer that camera up and down, it's very jittery. It's slow and then it speeds up, and I have no idea why. I think it maybe has something to do with the electronic image stabilization fighting the mechanical movement of the camera, or is it just the signal it's getting from the drone is unreliable? I don't know, but that was a little disappointing that despite having that gimbal and in a brushless motor, not a servo motor, it almost performs like a servo motor, which is very jittery. So whenever I tried to use the GPS follow mode, it just didn't work. It threw up an error that I needed to be within 100 meters. It was definitely not 100 meters. It was definitely between the stated I think 5 or 10 meters and 100 meters, which is around 30 feet to 300 feet. I had it up there. It was probably about 50, 100 feet away from me, and the thing just wouldn't work. It always gave me that error, so that seems to be a downgrade, probably an issue with the app, not the drone itself. Maybe they'll fix that. Jack got that to work on the original F11 without a problem in the original SJRC app. The app has changed, and from what I can see from other videos, is the Ruko app is the SJRC updated app. I did mention I was also excited about the vision-based object tracking, and I was disappointed by that as well. So this drone isn't going to follow you with that. It's just going to yaw the drone. It won't even move the gimbal up and down to track you. It's just going to yaw. It's not going to follow you. It's not going to do anything. So if you want to set this thing up and just have it rotate while you run around it, cool, it will do that. Okay, it will probably lose you pretty quickly as well, but that feature is there, kinda. Another feature I mentioned being excited about is ADI mode, or being able to turn off GPS. You do that by actually holding down the home button for about 5 seconds. Now, how would you know that? You actually have to read the directions. It's not available in the app. So you might think that might help you smooth things out, but really I found the drone to be very unreliable, switching between GPS and no GPS mode, and the drone wasn't any easier to handle with it GPS turned off. Which brings me to, how did it handle with GPS turned on? I mentioned the toilet bowling from Jack's original video, and that hasn't gotten any better. So trying to fly this thing in general in GPS mode is an exercise in difficulty. If you've never flown another drone, you may think that it's you, but it's not just you if you buy this. The drone is very difficult to fly. It just doesn't respond well. When left to its own devices, the drone will drift around randomly in GPS mode and will even start to do a toilet bowl mode. It'll start off about this big and slowly get to, I don't know, we let it get to about probably a 15-20 foot radius before playing with the gimbals a little bit, and that somehow kicks it out of it, but it doesn't make it any easier to fly. I also mentioned Jack wasn't a huge fan of the range, and they don't seem to have done anything to improve that either. And just getting on the other side of my house, I quickly lost all signal and wasn't able to reconnect to Wi-Fi until I landed the drone again. So your range on this thing is going to be in a crowded neighborhood on the order of tens of feet perhaps. In a wide open area, I'm sure you can get several hundred feet away without an issue, but how often are you going to be flying there? I don't know. So the build quality of this drone is great, and it's gotten a little bit better. Jack said the same thing about the old version. Great motors, great drone, great remote, but the software is really where this thing kind of falls apart. The gimbal's there, the video quality's gotten better, but that's about it that's gotten better. Still limited in range. I still have a very difficult to fly drone compared to the competition. So at around $350 to $400, this thing is still getting great reviews on Amazon. But I could tell you right now, you have a better option. Ruko, thank you for sending us this, but I'm going to have to send people who are looking in the $350 to $400 price range on over to the DJI Mini or Mini 2. For like $50 to $100 extra dollars, it's definitely worth getting that drone. The extra features this drone offers above the mini series drones don't really work very well, and you're going to be just enjoying the video quality, the 3-axis gimbal, the incredible range of the DJI products, and I strongly recommend you look there. Now, if your price range is around $200, maybe this is a drone worth considering. We found the SJRC F11 Pro, which I believe is this drone, for as little as about $180, $190 on Banggood.com. With 3 batteries, it's at 244, which I do recommend. The charge time on these batteries is atrociously long. I think it's over 4 hours to charge this, so you're going to want more. Can you get decent videos out of this? Yes. If you want to spend $200 for a drone, I would say this is a good option. If you want to spend $400 for a drone, keep on walking to the DJI Mini series. Alright guys, that about wraps up my review of the Ruko F11 Gim, also known as the SJRC F11 Pro. As you can see, wasn't a huge fan of this, although we will be giving it away for sure. It's not a dangerous drone, it's just not a great drone. Some of them are dangerous. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be getting better drones than this soon to share with you. Also check us out on halfchrome.com. I'll see you guys next time.